Previously on Battle Chasers, the legendary hero Aramus has gone missing. No one knows why. Not even his daughter Gully. A pack of werewolves attack Aramus' house, defeating the royal guards who were there. Gully's nanny managed to pass an ornate box to Gully, buying the child time to escape. Now, Gully is alone in a storm in the dark, carrying an item of unknown power. What secrets does that box hide? And will Gully survive long enough to find out? Find out today on Comic Book Breakdown, episode 11.2, The Battle Begins.
In the capital lands, fate has brought together 5 unlikely allies. From Vandalheim to Capital City, from the Cyrene Valley to the Crescent Isle, they will become known as the Battle Chasers. Dun 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 dun. Battle Chasers. Dun 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 dun. They stand against evil with all of their might. Wherever they go, well, you know there's a fight. They're gonna win the battle by the end of the night. So who the hell are they? You wanna know, right? Well, they're the Battle Chasers. Dun 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 dun. There is Garrison. I don't want to use this sword, but I will if you force me. And we've got Calibretto.
I was made for war, but I will fight for peace.
And there's Gully. I'm gonna find my father, and I'll slug anyone who tries to stop me. And Knolan. It takes years to master magic, and I've spent them, you punk. And we've got Red Monika. Don't worry, boys. I'm here to save you. They stand against evil with all of their might. Wherever they go, well, you know there's a fight. They're gonna win the battle by the end of the night. So who the hell are they? You wanna know, right? They're the Battle Chasers. Dun 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 dun. Battle Chasers. Dun 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 dun. They're the Battle Chasers. Everyone, welcome to a slightly off version of Breakdown. Don't worry, you are listening to the right podcast. My name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdown. But as I was approaching Battle Chasers, I knew that I wanted to spice things up a bit. Keep this relationship fresh, we've been together for over a year now, yeah? And since so much of Joe Mad's artwork was inspired by anime and manga, I figured that I would follow that same line of thought. So, expect a small recap and our temporary opening theme for the duration of these episodes. Sorry for my lackluster vocals, though. Battle Chasers Issue 1 was released in April of 1998, and I want to point out the cover to it. Now, the covers for Issue 1 and 2 are both ensemble shots, showcasing the overall party of Battle Chasers. This includes Gully, Garrison, Knolan, Calibretto, and Red Monika. That is a lot of characters to work into a dynamic and eye-catching cover, plus having the publication box in the corner, the issue number, title font, the creator credits, and having that pesky barcode somewhere. Remember, the selling point of this book, if we're being honest, is Joe Mad's artwork. You want the reader to be able to see that artwork, to be wowed by it, and covering it with a bunch of bullshit would be counterproductive to that end. Someone at Cliffhanger or Image knew this, so they moved the title font to the back cover. They also made sure that the publication box in the upper left corner was transparent, allowing Calibretto's head to show through without moving the box somewhere else. This is a smart move, and it leaves us with a nice movie poster style cover. I don't think that the cover's colors flow very well, though. Gully's green clothing and cloak catch my eye immediately. They're just so bright and noticeable. But her body's pose pulls my eye upward and to the right, as does Nolan's arm and a diagonal flame wall. This draws me to Red Monika, smiling seductively in the corner. Then we go to the middle top of the page where the title font should be, but instead it leads us to Calibretto. The straight lines of the publisher's box, which frame in Calibretto's face, aim me down at Garrison's sword hilt and his face, which then circles me back around to Gully. The layout of this cover is pretty great. It gives everybody enough space and time to focus on each other, but the red of Garrison's cloak, the flame wall that Knolan has cast, and Nolan's red clothing dominate the image, which kind of makes me lose Knolan himself. The lighting on his face blends him with Calibretto, too. They're just too close to a shade. So the blue-black gloves that he has on are honestly the most noticeable thing about him. He gets lost in the shuffle, and given that he's 1/5 the cast of this book, that's a real shame. Inside of that cover, the story opens in a dream. Knolan and another robed figure stand over a body. A metal mask with glowing hot nails is lowered onto a face and appears to be seared onto the individual. Cryptic narration boxes describe an open grave, a condemned man, mystic armor, and a searing heat. The camera swings around, focusing on the blue eyes of the man inside of the mask, and he screams. He always screams. Knolan jerks awake, sweat flinging from his face. He is inside of a house, sleeping under a blanket before the fireplace. Knolan is an old man, although he's in decent shape. A small tuft of hair is tied at the back of his otherwise bald head. Bushy, and I mean bushy, white eyebrows and a mustache-goatee combo use up the rest of the allotted hair slots on his head. He puts on a small circular set of glasses and looks around. Normally, he can see the faces of the others, but this time he couldn't. This weirds Knolan out. He calls for Calibretto, wanting more wood for the fire to disperse the chill that he feels. But there is no answer, and so Knolan curses. We move outside, into the woods, where a flash of lightning reveals Gully running through the forest. She's determined to protect the box that Nanny gave her, but the werewolves are going to put that determination to the test. One of them snags her cloak in its teeth and shakes her back and forth like a dog with a stick. It lets her go, tossing Gully against a tree, but she still hangs on to the box. Weakly, she tells the wolf that she won't give it to them. Glistening teeth and glowing eyes emerge from the woods as the pack closes in. One of them draws a knife. Then run. Gully does so, fleeing into the ruined city of Grannock. She hides, hoping that she'll be safe, but it isn't to be. One of the wolves busts through a wall, taunting Gully over her large eyes. The girl grabs an old pick off the ground, but the shaft snaps. The wolfman laughs at her, praising her will to fight. At least she has more than her father did when they killed him. Gully refuses to believe that they killed her father, and she shoves the handle into its neck. She runs, escaping through a window as the pack looks to their injured member. It's hurt, but not dead, and orders them to secure the box, but to leave the girl for him. As Gully runs, the wolf's taunt wears at her. Could it be true? No, it can't be true. Lost in her thoughts, Gully runs into someone, and they are massive. The figure is swaddled in brown clothing, and its eyes are glowing in its wrapped face. The figure catches the box as it flies through the air after the impact, and Gully demands it back. The figure raises a hand in response. Its palm glows green, and a mechanical whine fills the air. Gully steps back, and 3 steel balls fire out of the hand and through one of the wolves. The stranger passes the box back to Gully. She warns them that they'll kill them, too, and 3 arrows thunk into their back. The figure turns and sees the archer wolf in a tree. A laser-sighted device pops up through the cloak, and it's a flamethrower. The burst of fire is dodged as the wolf dives at the stranger. This time, the wolf's face is grabbed in one hand and is slammed into the ground. The wolf's limbs go limp. Suddenly, lightning flashes again, but it hits the raised fist of the stranger. They don't die from the strike, though. No, the lightning charges along the stranger's metal frame, burning away the wrappings that are its clothing. When the lightning is done, a massive metal war golem stands revealed. It looks at Gully. Then it warns her to stay back. The golem's right hand clicks and clacks, and it transforms, becoming a conductor for the electricity that it just absorbed. Recognizing the value of a working war golem, the wolves are suddenly expecting a big payday. They rush in to capture it. The golem plants the conductor into the ground, and a blast of energy engulfs the three of them, burning them and killing them. Gully, struggling to control her electrically raised hair, asks if the figure is okay. The stranger suggests that they take cover. It will not be able to survive another lightning strike. So that was a dope reveal, cinematic AF. The war golem, although unnamed in the narrative at this point, is Calibretto. It's taller than the average human, with large spherical shoulders. Thin arms go down into huge gauntleted hands. Similarly, Calibretto's chest is a huge round piece, with 2 green orbs on either breast area that are surrounded in, bone, maybe? Some kind of crust? There are these almost like chitinous growths on Calibretto. He has some here on these green orbs, he has some on his shoulders, he has some on his back, and I'm not exactly sure what they are. They do add a sense of life, of organicness to the design, though. A thin spine then goes down to pants? How does Calibretto have pants? Why are the pants fireproof but not the rest of his clothing? Whatever, man. The thing that I like most, though, is Calibretto's face. A thick neck piece surrounds Bretto's head, and at the very front of it is a slotted grate. Behind that, most of Bretto's face is pure black, either built that way or just shadowed, I can't really tell. Then there are 2 pieces of metal, one above the eye and one below. This basically gives Calibretto eyebrows, allowing it to emote quite well, despite the lack of facial muscles or, a mouth. But we kinda have a mouth. That grate in front, if looked at just right, can kind of be interpreted as grinning teeth. I don't think that this was an intentional effect, as Joe Mad uses very few shots that emphasize it, though. And in the one shot that I noticed it in, it did make Calibretto look homicidal or bloodthirsty, so yeah, that's not really going to be his character moving forward. I liked Gully's portion of this scene as well. Her encounter shows us how tough she is, how determined she is, and it demonstrates both a cunning mind and a willingness to harm her enemies. I could see people balking at a child stabbing a wolf in the neck, but Gully is the daughter of Aramus. She ain't got time for these bullchase wolves. I have a minor structure complaint about Knolan's introduction here, but I'll hold off on that until we have finished the whole issue. Instead, I'm going to complain about the lettering. There are still some of the main problems that I had in the Prelude last issue, mainly the photoshopped sound effects sticking out like a sore thumb. But my real problem here is the random capitalization that happens. I don't know if these were from the script, which is possible, and if so, holy crap, Sharif and Mad, or if this was the fault of the letterer themselves. For example, years ago, a capital M, massive capital F flood poured through the city, destroying the whole of it. Perhaps within its capital L long, capital F forgotten, capital W walls, she might find a place to hide. Now, in English, we capitalize at the start of a sentence, or at a proper noun or name. If this was the massive flood, and everyone called it that, and that was the name of the event, then sure, capitalize the crap out of it. But it's a massive flood, so it's neither a name or a noun. And this happens throughout the issue. There are 34 individual times that this weird capitalization happens. Who does that? Why would you do that? There's a box where they refer to Calibretto as the capital S stranger, And that's right, sure, since they're using the capital S Stranger as a placeholder for Calibretto's name. But the rest of these are stupid! This is like, what, first grade English class, man? We cut to Vandalheim, the most wretched hive of scum and villainy in all the civilized/unified territories. We head to the Death's Door Saloon, and we follow the camera inside. It stops on a man well into his cups, who sits with his head bowed. Medium-length black hair, parted down the middle, hangs in his face. He's muscular and fit, but his shirt is worn. This man is broken, depressed, and he looks it. Nonetheless, Garrison is the man that we're looking for. We is Red Monika, and the camera turns to reveal her. Monika is a fit, beautiful woman sporting a mane of reddish hair. A choker with a heart on it circles her neck, leading our eyes to her, huge tracts of land, which are held in place by a red and gold top. She smiles at Garrison and sits down. Just the man that she needs. Behind Monika are two lackeys. One of them is a short, bald man with a small tuft of hair at the back. A lot of dudes with bald heads save for a small ponytail at the back. A thin mustache rides the wide upper lip of his round face. The other man is taller and swaddled in a cloak. Leather or cloth hides the bottom of his face. Spiky blonde hair tops his head. Both men are colored gray, which is a weird effect, wear goggles, and have small red dots on their forehead. Garrison looks up at his company, his unwanted company, and tells them to go away. Monika isn't one to take go away for an answer, though. She has a job, one that'll let Garrison prove that he still has an edge. Monika has been hired to break into Skyhold Prison to free Rayon del Soya. She has all of the info that they'll need to do it. Schematics, codes, guard shifts, air transport to the prison. But she'd like some extra muscle to cover her back, and she would like for it to be Garrison. Garrison laughs at her this time. The two men with Monika bristle. No one insults her holiness like this. Monika signals them to stay in place as they begin to grab their swords. There's no fun beating up a has-been. Garrison can't, and doesn't, argue with that. He begins to drink from his mug, but Monika slaps it away before he can finish. If this is what Garrison's life has become, then he should just end it now. She stabs a knife into the table. Then she turns to leave, hoping that he goes to hell. Garrison leans over in his seat. He's already there. This is like the most written in junior high portion of a comic book that I have ever seen. First off, this ending with Garrison. We pick up on the fact that Garrison is miserable from the start. We've got his drunkenness, his disheveled clothing, his rude dialogue, and comments from both narration and Monika play into that fact. Garrison is not the man that he was, and that part of the story is fine. We understand it. But when he adds that, "I'm already there," at the end, it's just so over the top. Some subtlety here would be appreciated, Battle Chasers. I mean, if the scene had ended with Garrison's head hung in depression and shame, that would be fine. That'd work. I would be praising this scene for competently holding itself in. But instead, we just get smacked upside of our face by how miserable Garrison is. I can't count the number of characters that I created in 8th grade that were motivated by some dark, bitter loss. It isn't unique, and although it isn't necessarily bad, it's executed pretty badly here. And as long as I'm talking about too much, I need to talk about Red Monika. More specifically, I need to talk about her breasts. Now, comics, and especially superhero comics, have always portrayed their cast as more. They're stronger, faster, smarter, better looking than the average person. This bled into the artwork, as one still image must convey so much information and action. So an athletic man becomes a ripped man, and a beautiful woman becomes a sexy woman. This facet of the industry has been downplayed a bit more in the past 10 years or so, as the industry has worked to sell more to girls and women, but it's also been something that generally hasn't bothered me. As a straight man, a beautiful woman is a beautiful woman, whether she is realistically or unrealistically drawn. But Red Monika is on a whole other level. One that is generally reserved for characters like Jessica Rabbit, DC's Power Girl, Nina Dowd, and Chaos's Lady Death. Her breasts aren't just big, they're too big. They are enormous, and they are always on display. Monika is the only character featured on the cover to Battle Chasers issue 3, and I was embarrassed to take that comic to the counter when I bought it. Now, the problem here isn't that Monika has big breasts. Some women have big breasts, it happens. My problem is how Battle Chasers displays those assets. This comic is made by men to sell to men, and I honestly think that Monika is used as a ploy to sell copies. Like, ooh, not only can we sell this comic because it's a good no swearing comic, but we can also sell it to 12-year-olds as secret masturbation material, and their parents will be none the wiser. No, Ma, I read it for the well-thought-out and articulated dialogue, not this chick's huge boobs. I don't even like girls, they're icky, kind of thing. And that frustrates me, because here's the thing. Battle Chasers is a good comic. It has interesting characters, a great look, and while it's not the deepest group of plots in the world, it is fun and engaging and thoroughly enjoyable. I wrote a late 80s/early 90s theme song for it because it makes me think of the kind of cartoon that it could have been, engaging and with enough depth to provide for lots of story material, but not so heavy or serious as to be unable to sell action figures to an 8-year-old. If someone is going to judge Battle Chasers, it should be based on those merits, not on Red Monika's cup size. But the second you slap Red Monika on a cover, it immediately changes the buyer's focus from, I enjoy this comic, to, I enjoy this woman's breasts. Or, perhaps the real thing that bothers me is that it immediately changes how someone else views my buying habits. I am legitimately here for the story, and the artwork, sure, I can't discount that, but I try to buy a Battle Chasers comic with Monika on the cover, and I look like a sexual deviant. Which even then isn't my problem, as I can be as sexually deviant as my partner allows me to be, so really, the only person affected is the one judging me. And no swearing, that person, right? I say, as a 30-something-year-old man who is much more confident about who he is, when I would have been in my mid-teens when I was buying these comics, and as such, was a much bigger wreck emotionally. And I know that the biggest problem I have here is internal because, and get this, Red Monika is awesome. She's smart, capable, confident, and a badass. She walks into the baddest bar in baddest tavern, like she owns the place, and she does so while half naked. Monika doesn't give a crap how anyone else views her because she knows that she's gorgeous and that she's capable. No swearing. Anyone who thinks otherwise. This isn't just demonstrated by her conversation with Garrison, but her interactions with her lackeys. They listen to her without hesitation. Plus, Monika's fun. When she walks up to Garrison, we get a full-page shot of Monika smiling at him, telling him that she needs him, and her dialogue is even delivered in a heart-shaped balloon. Monika is using her sexuality to joke around with Garrison, and the creators of this book with their audience. She knows how hot she is, and she knows what it looks like when a half-naked woman walks up to a man in a bar, and she does it anyway. While Gully is our main emotional investment here in Battle Chasers, with Calibretto about to be our second, Garrison delivers on self-important sad sackiness, and Knolan does the exposition. Monika is the character who brings a fun sense of irreverence that no other character does. And honestly, that balance is a welcome addition to the overall story, too. What's the overall point here? Man, I don't even know anymore. I guess that it's just to be more like Monika. Let other people judge. You do what it takes to be happy with yourself. Okay. Having sustained some damage from the lightning blast earlier, Calibretto and Gully have retreated to an old shed. Gully is trying to open the box that her nanny gave her, but to no avail. Calibretto, who is tinkering with his left arm, comments that the box has been sealed by magic. His friend Knolan may be able to help with it. The two of them then exchange names, and Gully asks why Calibretto was just hanging around the woods at night, like some kind of creep. Calibretto holds up a seed between his huge fingers. It is trying to revive a nearly extinct flower, which can only be planted at night. This causes Gully to finally crack. She starts crying. Calibretto asks why she's so upset, and Gully flashbacks us through the events of the prelude. She ends the scene for us, wondering just what is so important about this box. This is a pretty cute introduction scene. Obviously, Mad and Sharif are establishing some things about Calibretto, that it cares for living things. Despite being a non-biological life form and having been built for combat, which we know from it being called a war golem and the fight scene with the wolves, Calibretto cares for living things. Not only did it save Gully, but it's trying to re-establish a nearly extinct flower. That is a solid character trait, and it makes Bretto more relatable, despite the fact that he is so inhuman. This also touches Gully enough for her to trust Calibretto with her recent escape, which is the second purpose for this scene. I don't know who at Cliffhanger thought about it, but someone knew that making the Prelude issue a website exclusive would limit its market reach. As such, regular comic buyers wouldn't get to read it, and it would leave them with questions. So they provide us with a Cliff Notes version, literally just photoshopping in panels of the Prelude with Gully's commentary on it. They did rough up the edges of the panels, and they colored them a golden brownish hue like old parchment, which is a great touch. I specifically know that people would have missed out on this issue, because when I put my Battle Chasers collection together initially, I completely missed the Prelude, and getting issue 1 was the single most expensive issue out of the entire collection. So then when I finally sat down and had a chance to read it, we had this flashback scene, and it's clearly finished Joe Mad artwork. This is not something that was drawn for the comic. It's very clearly photoshopped images into the comic. And that sent me down a rabbit hole figuring out, does the Prelude exist? Where was this material published at? What did I miss? Type of thing. So I'm glad that they at least included it so readers could understand things, but from a completionist standpoint, man, I just had to get the Prelude myself. Unfortunately, I don't like the structure of this scene, and this goes back to my main complaint with Knolan earlier. While Calibretto tells us that it's injured after the fight with the wolves, there was no visible damage on it. There just wasn't any space left on the page. Cutting to this scene then makes that more jarring, because now we're not thinking about the fact that Calibretto was injured, we're thinking about the scene with Garrison and Red Monika. The conversation between Calibretto and Gully doesn't help this either. Our next narrative step is taking Gully and the box to Knolan, so that's really what we should have ended on. This scene should have opened with Calibretto saying that it needs to effect repairs, and a scared, tired Gully would explain about what's going on when she's prompted by it through conversation. She would then get upset about the box and try to pry it open. When that fails to work, Calibretto says that he knows a guy, which would then lead us to Knolan much more efficiently. Our next scene, in which the surviving wolf meets with its master, could have been after their fight with Calibretto, which would clean up the narrative even more. So what we should have had is Calibretto fights wolves, wins. Surviving wolf talks to its master, end ominously. Do the Garrison/Monika scene, then move to Calibretto/Gully, and then we would end on Knolan, which really should have been structured with the opening of the comic scene here instead. Yeah, that would have worked better. And if you're a little bit confused, don't worry, I'll clean up the whole Knolan thing when we get there. I'm getting ahead of myself. We move to somewhere else in the woods where the surviving wolf meets with its master. The figure is shadowed, save for their glowing orange eyes, so we learn very little about them. They are disappointed in the wolves' failure to procure the box, but they accept the wolf's explanation about a war golem. Their master promises them backup for when they try again. But this time, they better not fail. At the end of the book, we move to Knolan, who is still awake, his dreams having left him restless. He floats in midair, with a massive book floating before him. The pages move on their own and stop on a map. Knolan recognizes the Mana region, but suddenly the map catches fire. Knolan sees this as a premonition of disaster, but a knock on the door stops him. He answers it, and finds Calibretto holding a cold, unconscious Gully. The old man hurries them inside and finds her some blankets. After some time, but not much as it's still raining and night outside, Gully wakes up. Knolan, having heard her story from Calibretto, assures her that she'll be okay. In the morning, they'll go to see King Veneer, and he'll know what to do. He also apologizes for the death of her father. Gully responds that her father is alive. Of course, totally. I bet he's alive. Knolan apologizes again, and says that the box she was carrying may hold a clue to his whereabouts. Gully asks Knolan if he can open it, and of course he can. Knolan points, some glyphs float through the air, and the box unlatches. Ignoring Nolan's warning about a potential danger inside of it, Gully opens the box. A pair of large gauntlets float in the air. They're brown leather, with a large red jewel set inside of golden designs upon the back of the hand. Calibretto and Knolan recognize Aramus's famed gauntlets. But why did Aramus leave them behind? A very good question. One to be answered in the next issue, as this is where issue 1 ends. And while I like that the whole main cast of this book was introduced, I'm a little annoyed at most of their stories playing out separately. Sure, Gully, Knolan, and Calibretto have joined together now, but Garrison refused to play with the kids at all. And Monika is off breaking into a prison, so she's like totally on her own. For a fantasy story, we have neither an adventuring party nor a main quest yet. And sure, this is only the first issue, and it has a lot to introduce, but I don't know. Other comics can have or have done it, so why not this one? This is where I would have moved the opening scene with Knolan to. Instead of opening on Knolan having this dream and waking up and then looking for Calibretto, which in theory from a scene transition point would lead us to something featuring Calibretto, we move it here instead, where he wakes up from his dream, he looks for Calibretto, he's not sure what's going on, and you could even have, rather than the nightmare waking him up because it's just so dang scary, he could be in the middle of the nightmare, and then Calibretto banging on the door is what wakes Knolan up. Then he goes to answer the door, and Calibretto and Gully are there. We already know that something weird is going on when Knolan tells us that his dream is different than it normally is. Something ominous is happening, something to do with his past. Showing us that the Mana region catches fire reinforces this, sure, but it's not necessary. So you could have moved Knolan's opening scene here to the end and kept our narrative flowing a lot better. We then would have opened on Gully running in the woods, which would have caught us up immediately with where the prelude left us off, with the character that we're already invested in, and then her narrative would flow much more naturally into meeting Calibretto, the fight scene with the wolves, and then so on. Even if you didn't do the rest of the changes that I suggested with this issue, I still think this would have cleaned up the narrative a bit more and made things more interesting overall. Instead, we start this issue off thrown into a character that we barely know is even in the book, having some kind of weird flashback dealing with characters we don't care about or have any familiarity with. I know a 9-year-old girl is running through the woods for her life being pursued by wolves. Focus on that. Let's go with that. Let's run with that. Okay, so I've clearly got a few minor story complaints, but honestly this wasn't a bad read. I'm starting to get a little hopeful for Battle Chasers, which is a fire that I'm going to quench before it burns me. Let's move on to issue 2. The morning after the storm is beautiful as we watch the sun rise over the Cyrene Valley. 2 soldiers in the Royal Guard ride across the landscape on a mission of dubious nature. One of the men, a dark-haired man named Jaren, is unsure of their task. If their captain finds out about this unapproved trip that they're taking, the other soldier, Clavius, assures him that they'll be fine. What they're doing here is important. The man that they're riding to meet was one of, if not the best, swordsman in the Royal Guard. He taught Clavius everything that he knows. However, as they approach this mystery man's unfinished home, Clavius warns Jaren to hang back. This guy doesn't like visitors, so perhaps it's best if Clavius talks to him alone. He dismounts and approaches the building, shouting a greeting. Garrison, wearing his torn clothing from last night, leans against an empty door frame, a wine bottle in hand. Whatever Clavius wants, Garrison assures the younger man that he cannot help him. Clavius thinks otherwise. There was an incident at Aramus's house last night. A whole squad of guardsmen was killed, although they know little else about it. The only thing that they're sure of is that Aramus's daughter, Gully, is missing. Whether she has been taken or killed remains to be seen. The neck of the bottle shatters in Garrison's hand. Clavius knew that Aramus and Garrison were close. With Garrison at their side, they'll find whoever did this and bring them to justice for sure. But as Clavius speaks, Garrison's eyes fall upon his sheathed blade, and it's like a switch is turned off. Garrison's anger and rage vanishes immediately, replaced with fear? Apprehension? In either case, he turns away from Clavius and apologizes. He can't help him. Garrison tells Clavius to leave, and to never come back. Jaren has ridden closer by now, and he agrees with the drunk. He'll be of no help to them. Even his house is a dump. Clavius berates him for this. The house was going to be a wedding gift to Garrison's wife, but she died on their wedding day. Garrison, head bowed, walks to the dark interior of the building. He uncovers a large painting, revealing an image of Garrison and Aramus, the thick man towering over even Garrison. They're both smiling proudly, and Garrison's shorter hair indicates that this was some time ago. Jaren asks Clavius exactly who this man that they just spoke to was, and when Clavius says Garrison, Jaren is amazed. The Garrison? That guy was Garrison? Wow. Jaren thought that Garrison was dead. In his unfinished home, Garrison sits down on a packing crate, his head bowed. Clavius says that, in many ways, Garrison has died. So we're clearly continuing the theme of high school level drama in regards to Garrison. The dead wife as a motivating drive is a pretty cliche story point. Even Disney's Wreck-It Ralph made a joke about it. But I do feel that this scene works better than the one from last issue. Using Clavius and Jaren to learn about Garrison's background works well, as he sure isn't going to share that information with us. Clavius clearly respects Garrison and is familiar with his history, as shown by his knowledge of G-Man's relationship with Aramus and his knowledge of his dead wife. This is the first time that we learn that Garrison was a soldier. All that we knew previously was that he was a swordsman, or that he had a wife at all. I like that Mad and Sharif placed this scene at the beginning of the issue, too. Garrison got the least amount of focus in issue 1, so immediately starting with him scratches my itchy desire to know more. We still don't know how Garrison and Monika knew each other, or how/why his wife died, but this picture is starting to come into focus a bit. The story then moves to Knolan's, cottage, I guess? The old man meets with Calibretto outside of it, in a pond, where birds are alighting all over the big metal war golem. Knolan plans to go into town to get clothing and food for the girl, but does Calibretto need anything? The golem's only request is for more birdseed. Knolan chuckles at this. He then warns Calibretto about Aramus's gauntlets. They are not a harmless heirloom, or a toy for a child, or just simple gloves. They are dangerous. In fact, they are extremely dangerous, so keep Gully away from them. Then, solidifying how anime-inspired Knolan is, he then shouts, "For Nimbus!" a small cloud that he can ride upon. This is a nod to Dragon Ball and its sequel, Dragon Ball Z, where the elderly Master Roshi rides on the cloud Nimbus. He does end up giving it to Goku in the course of the series, but it starts with Master Roshi. Before Knolan can leave, Calibretto asks him what he should tell Gully once she wakes up. And Knolan tells him to say nothing. They'll let King Veneer sort this whole mess out. Then he flies off. A short time later, Calibretto goes into the house to check on Gully and the gloves. But then there's a knock at the door. Thinking that Knolan maybe forgot something, Calibretto opens it. He finds a massive cannon aimed at his face on the other side. The electrical blast and metallic impact of Calibretto falling over wakes Gully up. She goes to the door and peeks through a crack in it. 4 monstrous shapes gather around Calibretto's stunned form. They appear genderless, although they might be male given their general body shape, and they have long, muscular arms, thick necks and shoulders with rigid spines, and large, lipless mouths of jagged teeth. A single red dot on the front of their shapeless face appears to be their eye. They know that Calibretto will recover eventually, so they are on the clock. Defenseless, Gully grabs her father's box and slips into the closet to hide. The surviving wolf from issue 1 crawls into the house, sniffing for Gully's scent. She can't escape him, he says. He was toying with her last night, and he learned his lesson. This time, he isn't going to play with her. The wolf tells his aides to spread out and find the girl. Suddenly, the box glows green in Gully's lap. She opens the box, and Aramus's gauntlets float into the air again. Amazed, Gully slips them on, and now they glow golden. Amber energy explodes from the gauntlets, lifting Gully into the air a few inches. The energy swirls around her, and then it dives into her chest. As quickly as that light show began, it ends, and Gully falls to her knees. The wolf tears into the door with its axe. He sees Gully and smashes the rest of the door down. He raises his axe. Look at how precious the daughter of Aramus is. Too scared to even move. He brings down the axe upon her, and it shatters on her shoulder. That is not what he expected to happen. The wolf holds up the handle of the axe, confused. Gully's gloved hands close into fists, angry. She declares that she is never running away again. Then she punches the wolf, and he flies through the roof. The monsters that came with him look up in surprise. This gives Calibretto a chance to sit up, transforming its fist into a gun. It fires on the monsters, killing them, and then Gully's scream catches Calibretto's attention. It follows the path of destruction left by Gully through the woods. There are massive living trees that have just been shoved over, scattered, and broken everywhere. At the end of the path, Calibretto finds Gully. Lost in her anger, Gully pounds on the lifeless body of the wolf, demanding answers about her father. The golem grabs one of Gully's hands, telling her that the wolf won't be giving her any answers. Gully finally pauses, and she notices the blood on her gloves, her clothes, her hair, and she starts to cry. She didn't mean to kill the wolf, she swears. Gully runs to Calibretto and hugs his leg, tears running down her face. Calibretto lets her cry. Now this scene accomplishes a lot. First, it implies the reach of whoever our evil, mastermindy villain is. Last issue, the surviving wolf requested help to defeat Calibretto, and here he has it. Either our villain has money, magic, or access to equipment and aid. I also like that the wolf explains why he was taunting Gully last issue. He just enjoys the hunt. Sure, he is a one-note henchman, but he does have some personality, dang it. Secondly, Gully puts on her father's gauntlets. She is now not only super strong, but super tough too. She has enough strength to punch that wolf through the air and break healthy trees with her hands, and she was totally unaffected by that axe strike. This defense jump ain't nothing to sneeze at. Thirdly, and this is the most important thing to me, it causes Gully and Calibretto to bond more. Yes, there was already a connection there from last issue, but now Calibretto has a chance to see Gully at her worst. A 9-year-old with a temper and an almost unstoppable level of power is a pretty intimidating thing. But Calibretto only sees a scared child who needs help, so it lets her cry and it holds her. Calibretto, who also has immense powers but a kind heart, and Gully will be nearly impossible to separate for the rest of this series, but that bond really begins to form here. We then move to the Mana region, which Knolan's premonition saw catch fire last issue. The ground here is cracked, with a bright, almost neon green light emanating from below. What landscape that we see otherwise appears barren and empty, save for a castle fortress that rises above it all upon a hill. Within the castle, we find the portly Ryman receiving some good news. He gleefully tells his manservant Philbin that his dwarven contacts have found a new mana pool, quite possibly the largest one yet. Mana powers the technology of battle chasers, he explains to Philbin and us, so whoever controls the mana controls everything. Philbin is quite aware of who has control in this situation. Thank you very much. He leaves Rymon his meal, as well as a cloth-covered package of some kind that was delivered earlier that day. Philbin wishes his master a good meal, and leaves the room. Intrigued, Ryman opens and reads the card that came with the package. Quote, "A bit of mana, if you will, your wildest dreams I shall fulfill." End quote. Excited now, Ryman inserts a small vial of liquid mana into the base of the package, and then unwraps it. A female doll stands revealed, pale, with a pixie-cut hairstyle. Captivated by its beauty, Ryman leans in, which is when the doll suddenly activates. Its mouth splits open into a jagged grin, its yellow eyes snap open, and mechanical spider legs burst from its skirt, shredding the fabric. The doll taunts him, quote, "Still playing with dolls, Ryman?" End quote. Ryman's fear spikes so hard that it won the 1998 Invitational Beach Volleyball Tournament. He knows that voice. They buried that voice. Ryman swats at the doll with his tray, but it dodges the attack. A serrated whip shoots out of the doll, wrapping around Ryman's thick neck. It smiles at him as the whip tightens, drawing in closer and closer. The voice has more power now than Ryman could ever hope to have. More than he could imagine. Power, after all, is everything, and soon he will make them all pay. Our speech and camera suddenly jump from the doll to a thin, armor-faced man. What little of his face that is visible appears weathered and worn. I can't be sure, but I am fairly certain that this guy is the same guy that we saw in Nolan's dream last issue. He is surrounded by a halo of blue energy, floating and gloating to himself. He promises that Rymon was only the first to pay, but he's saving the old man for last. What old man, you might ask? Well, we move over to Knolan, who has returned to his slightly, very battle-damaged house. And he isn't happy about that. Calibretto quickly tells Knolan about what happened, and the old man heads inside to find Gully. Knolan doesn't say anything when he first gets to her, so Gully asks if he's going to make her leave. Knolan lights his pipe and takes a drag from it. No, he isn't. In fact, he's going to ask her to stay, for as long as she needs it. Gully thanks him, and he tells her to get some rest. Tomorrow morning, he expects her to clean up this mess. Elsewhere, we get a page of 4 panels of Red Monika getting equipped for her prison break job. Her pistol is loaded, her knife is sharp, her hair is tied back into a ponytail, her top is halfway unzipped, Monika walks out onto the deck of the airship and asks her sidekicks, "Is everything ready?" The shorter one smiles dutifully. All is in readiness. Monika grins back. "Good, 'cause things are about to get ugly." The camera swings around to reveal Skyhold Prison. The prison is a high-tech facility built into a floating mountain, dwarfing even the airship. Thick gray clouds surround Skyhold. And Issue 2 ends. So our main focus here in Issue 2 is still, really, Gully's plotline, which has now been adopted by Calibretto and Knolan. We're going to see that begin to shift a bit as the various character plots all start to pull together some more, but it does lay down some good emotional foundations for us. We've learned a bit more about Garrison, too, although he's still kind of a sad sack off doing his own thing. But at least he knows about Gully's plotline now, so he has a way in once he decides to do so. Overall, I have to say, this was a pretty solid second issue. I dug it. We aren't doing so bad with this book. I am, honestly, quite surprised. Next week, Garrison finally meets the trio, King Veneer finally gets pulled into the thick of things, and Red Monika's prison break goes well. So well, in fact, that she frees more people than she bargained for in the process. Oops. Everyone, there are a million podcasts vying for your time and attention, and I'd like to thank you for listening to mine. If you would like to get in touch with me to share a concern, request a series, compliment me, berate me, whatever you like, send me an email at cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Otherwise, thanks for listening.